Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Adventure Time from beginning to end in detail. After the world got destroyed by the Mushroom War, humanity went extinct, and magic, new deadly beasts and weird-looking creatures appeared. Humans protected themselves on an island in the middle of the ocean, away from the rest of the world, and they built a civilized community, protected it with a guardian that prevented anyone from going out or getting in. Outside of this island, Earth divided itself into different kingdoms: the Fire Kingdom, the Candy Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom, and the Grass Kingdom, aka the land of Oo, where Finn lived. These elements have existed since thousands of years ago and have been created by the founders of the Ice Crown to protect the Earth from the comet that hits every 1,000 years. The crown fulfills the wish of the person who wears it, but is also dangerous. We're gonna talk more about this later. For now, let's go back to the civilized community that protects the humans from the rest of the world. Humans had different occupations, like doctors, founders, who were the indigenous people, the hiders, who try to leave the island, and the seekers, who were trained by Dr. Gross to catch the hiders. One of these seekers, a girl called Carla, aka Susan Strong, once caught Martin, who was a hider and helped people escape the island, while trying to escape and broke his legs. He then was hospitalized, and it was then when he met Dr. Minerva, fell in love with her, married her, and they had a baby. One night, a gang he had trouble with broke into his house, so he had to run away with baby Finn. Martin crossed the island's borders, and so the Guardian attacked him. This is how the two get separated. Minerva sent the best seeker, Susan, to look for them, but even after years of searching, she just couldn't find them. Then a virus spreads on the island and kills 62% of its people, who were mostly helpers. So Minerva was the last one alive, and she decided to upload her brain into a computer and create thousands of helpers with it to save the island. Now let's go back to the baby that drifted away by the waves to the land of Oo, where two yellow creatures found him: Joshua, the dad, and Margaret, the mom. These two raised the kid alongside their son Jake, so they grew up together, became best friends, and lived their crazy adventures in the treehouse. One of the main stories is about Jake and how he got his power. See, he became elastic when his parents were investigating a robbery, and the dad got stung by a weird blur creature. Margaret tried to find a cure, but it was too late, and a huge tumor grew on Joshua's head. It was a baby, and his name was Jake. At the same time, his mom gave birth to his brother. As for Finn's dad, we don't know much about him except that he left for space, became a thief, and stole gold from planets while riding a huge insect. But we'll see more of him later. Now let's talk about the people that Finn and Jake met: BMO, Marceline, and the Ice King. Let's talk about Simon, aka Ice King, and Marceline first, because they are connected. The crown we mentioned earlier made Simon evil, changed him slowly to the worst, and caused him to lose his fiancée, Betty.
My skin is beginning to turn blue. My mind is changing.
At the same time, Marceline was with her mother in a crushed bus, and she told her that she was seeing weird dreams. She comforted her by saying they might just be familiar events. Marceline was a vampire because she could suck the creature's souls. One day, her mom sent her to a secret club and gave her a map, but Marceline discovered that her mom abandoned her because of a note she wrote apologizing for what she did. Her mom was apparently sick and didn't want Marceline to have to watch her die. Lost and sad, Simon found Marceline, gave her a puppet, and they became closer and lived a lot of adventures together. Simon used the crown a lot, and because it affected him badly, Marceline asked him to stop using it, and he actually agreed, but he did have to use it one last time to save her from some monsters. He then had to leave her because he didn't want the crown to hurt her. Marceline grew to be a teenager that hunts demons, and she also met a bunch of humans and lived with them for some time, until they were attacked by some vampires, so Marceline protected them by sucking their souls and taking their power. Those humans then wanted to sail to the human island, so Marceline had to leave them. Meanwhile, Simon built the Ice Kingdom in the land of Oo and became the Ice King. Now let's talk about BMO. BMO is the character who lived the longest since the day he was created by a human called Mo. Mo lived all that time through life support. After a life full of hero ships in space, he came back to Earth and met Finn and Jake as kids. As for Princess Bubblegum, she was born from a massive blob-like candy-like hive mind made of pink gum known as the mother gum after the war. Another pink huge gum was with her and she used it to produce energy in the Candy Kingdom. She didn't have a family, but she created one because she was lonely, and with more candy people, she built the Candy Kingdom. Gumbald, one of the candy people, wanted to be king and build his own kingdom, so he invented a beverage that made candy people dumb and then used them against her. However, she did manage to stop him, gain her people back, and Gumbald ended up becoming a dumb candy. Princess Bubblegum created her own kingdom and protected it with 2 huge candy giants. Okay, so those were the most popular characters of the show. Now let's talk about the 5th episode where everything started. Finn and Jake found the Enchiridion book after great adventures. This book has a long story. In the next episodes, we learn the love story between Lady Rainicorn and Jake, why Finn is scared of the ocean, who Magic Man is that wanted to kill Finn and Jake, how they met their old role model Billy, and how they met Susan, who was hiding underground with some of her friends. Apparently, she lost her memory. As we know, she came looking for Finn, but he doesn't know. In an episode, she almost destroyed the Candy Kingdom by eating it because she loved candy so much. In episode 24 of the 2nd season, the worst enemy, aka the Lich, was introduced. He was imprisoned by Billy in the Candy Kingdom, but he escaped by controlling the mind of the snail. He then left to try to get his power back. Finn and Jake were able to beat him, but he possessed Princess Bubblegum's body and threw her in a hole full of some kind of green material that turned her into a monster. By the end of the episode, Ice King froze her and broke her into pieces. The doctor was able to revive her, but in her younger form, Susan asked Finn for help to enlighten the underground city, and it's here that we see Flame Princess for the first time. Finn fell in love with her at first sight, and they started dating. A bear also appeared, wanting to befriend Finn, act like him, and get rid of him. So Finn gave him the Enchiridion book, but the bear took the book to the Lich. Magic Man was banished by his brother, the King of Mars, aka Abraham Lincoln, after committing several crimes. Magic Man switched bodies with Jake so that he could return to Mars and get sentenced to death. Jake died and everyone knew that he was not Magic Man, so out of guilt, Lincoln asked Death to bring Jake back to life in exchange for his soul. Alright, so now to the last episode of Season 4, where Finn had a nightmare that the Lich killed Billy, so he went to check up on him and he was fine, and asked them to bring all the princess's diamonds to beat the Lich. So Finn and Jake brought him what he asked for, only to discover that Billy had the Enchiridion book. Billy told them that he found it in a bear's mouth. They then put the diamonds in the book and discovered that the world had different dimensions, and in the middle of the parallel universes, there was Prismo's time room, and that was out of space and time. Later, we discovered that Billy was the Lich, and that he controlled him to make Finn and Jake grab the diamonds. The Lich went to another dimension, they end up following him, and they find normal people, whom we will talk about later. For now, in the time room, the Lich wished for all forms of life to disappear, which changed the course of events, but Finn and Jake didn't get affected by that because they were in the time room. Jake wished for everything to go back to what it used to be, but they realized they would bring the Lich back. So Finn wished for him to never exist in the first place, and like this, the world changed and we see Finn as a normal person, and Jake was his dog and they lived on a farm. We also see Simon, dead under a bomb that he stopped using his ice powers to save the world and freeze it for 400 years. Marceline was an old lady, and in this world, the Mushroom War never happened. Finn took the crown and became crazy, Jake became the Lich, and Finn destroyed the bomb. So everything that happened in the original dimension happened again in this world too. Finn disappeared due to his wish, so Jake was in the time room alone watching everything that was happening in the farm dimension. The original Finn went there because it was he who wished it. With one single wish left, Jake wished for the Lich's wish to be undone so that Finn could come back to the land of Oo. Finn and Jake went back to Oo, and the Lich stayed with Prismo. The other dimension stayed as well, and the diamonds went back to their original owners. In the next episodes, we learn that Jake's wife gave birth to 5 kids, and then we see the ultimate villain, Gulb, in a fast scene. We also see the deceptive king of the land of Oo, who would trick Princess Bubblegum in the future. Finn bought a grass sword from the Grassman for $3. That sword merged with his body, so each time Finn tried to chase it out, the sword comes back to him. He decides to keep it and use it in fights. In the next episodes, Ice King's made his crown stop working because he ruined a magic ceremony by spreading all of his magic all over the place. So, he went back to his normal state, asked Marceline to bring Hambo the puppet that he gave her in the past, so Marceline hugged them because she missed him. He then used Hambo to contact Betty in the past and apologize. But Betty jumped through the time portal to the future, and here we discover how he lost her. Simon's life was on edge because it was the crown keeping him alive. So Betty took the crown to Bella Noche, the one who made the crown lose its magic. The crown gets its magic back, Simon went back to being Ice King, and Betty disappeared to search for a cure to the crown curse. In the last episode of the 5th season, Finn discovers that his dad is alive and is imprisoned by Billy's soul while floating on water, and it seems like he got over his fear of the water. Finn and Jake went to Prismo and asked him to get them to the prison where Finn's dad is, although the Lich was there at that time too. Prismo asked them to bring an old man. They did, and Prismo told them that it was him dreaming about himself, and if that old man woke up, Prismo would disappear. The Lich took his chance and killed the old man, but at that instant, a prison portal opened and sucked the Lich inside because he committed a universal crime. Finn and Jake followed him and found Finn's dad. The Lich destroyed the prison, and Finn's father ran away, not caring about him at all. The Lich then attacked them in his skeleton form, and Finn beat him using this weird material that turned him into a baby. Finn chased his father, and while doing so, his hand got cut off and a flower came out of it. They end up going back to the land of Oo with Lich the baby, and he lived with Tree Trunks and her husband. Finn got his hand back when a bee fell in love with the magical flower and turned the flower into the grass sword that he was able to use from inside of his hand. Finn got a new sword when he got into a time loop in his dreams, and Prismo tried to get his help so that he could come back to life. The other sword was Finn, but from a time formula, and he lived inside of it. Oh, and we also discovered that Prismo was actually alive. By that time, a comet that hits the Earth every 1,000 years got closer to Mars instead, so Grob Gob Glob Grodd sacrificed himself to destroy the comet. We later discovered that the comet was actually the spaceship of Finn's dad, who went to Earth after Grob Gob Glob Grodd's attack. He finally met his son and told him things about his childhood, but he still left him to go back and travel space. Betty met Magic Man while looking for a cure for Simon, and they did a magic trick that failed and ended up with Betty stealing Magic Man's power and then disappearing. So he became a normal man, and we also discovered that he was only looking for his wife, who was taken away by Golb. We also discover that Gunter was an alien that ruled the universe a long time ago and is named Orgalorg. He used to suck a comet's power. He was also beaten by Grob Gob Glob Grodd and ended up on Earth as a penguin after losing his memory. As for Finn's dad, he kept on stealing gold from another planet and escaped on an alien bee. Anyways, now let's go back to Earth, where the Land of Oo's king made a coup and became king by exiling Princess Bubblegum. The 1,000-year comet arrived, so they prepared a spaceship to destroy it. Gunter went with them and transformed into his original form, Orgalorg, sucking the comet's energy and destroying it. Suddenly, Finn's dad showed up and helped him get inside of Orgalorg to stop him from sucking the comet's energy. Finn destroyed Orgalorg with his grass sword, so he turned into another creature, making Finn choose between going back to Earth or staying with his father. Finn, of course, chose the Earth, and the father and his son parted ways once again. Gunter also goes back to Earth, returning to his penguin form. Now, we got to Marceline's 8 parts of the story. Marceline got tired of being a vampire and wanted to experience the sun, so she asked Princess Bubblegum to extract the vampire's serum out of her. The next day, the villagers asked Finn and Jake for help to discover who was the vampire that attacked their cattle. They accused Marceline and tried to punish her by exposing her to the sun, but nothing happened to her, which means that she was no longer a vampire. 5 other vampires appeared, and it turned out that they were the ones that Marceline fought and took their powers to protect those humans. So when the serum was extracted, they went back to life. For the rest of the episode, she killed them, sucked their souls, and everything went back to normal. But to her surprise, another vampire appeared. However, this one surrendered and wanted the vampire's serum to be extracted from him. While doing so, an accident happened that led to an explosion that created a smoke creature. This creature then tried to destroy the Land of Oo, but at the same time, the kings died burning while running away. Everyone was fighting, Marceline killed the creature by inhaling it, and Princess Bubblegum got the kingdom back after the king died. Okay, so now that we're done with Marceline, let's go back to the events. Betty comes back after making a little research about the crown, edited it, and gave it back to him. Prismo then told Jake and Finn that there are problems in the farm dimension because Finn was the Ice King of that dimension, and Jake, the Lich, opened up a portal to many dimensions. And of course, they went to save the world. They got rid of the Lich using the weapon that Prismo gave them. While doing that, Finn got frozen, but he managed to get his grass hand to the Lich's hand that fell inside the portals into different dimensions. One of the hands fell into the original dimension. Finn then asked Prismo to get rid of the crown from the farm dimension. Now, we get to the part where Finn's sword broke while fighting with the bandit princess. This event has consequences that we will see later. Magic Man, who is now normal, became the king of Mars and made up with his brother Grob Gob Glob Grodd, who didn't actually die, but only had his parts orbiting the Earth. Patience is a new character that is supposed to be the inheritor of the ice element from the past, who also froze and came back to gather the other elements' inheritors: Princess Bubblegum, Slime Princess, and Flame Princess. We also discover that she is not good. More into the show, we discovered that humans are living in another part of the world when Susan's ship broke after she went feral. Finn stopped her using his grass hand, but it got cut off and went inside the sword that the other Finn was inside, and it was like this that Grass Finn, aka Fern, was created. He thought he was the original Finn, but he was only a hybrid between his little self and the grass hand. Fern even moved into the treehouse, and after an argument, he realized that he wasn't the real Finn. He stayed up on the tree, then left to ask the grassy wizard why he created him. He answered that he thought it was cool, and it was then when Fern gave him a good beating and then he just left. In this 8-episode part called Islands, lots of secrets will unveil. The episodes start with a huge spaceship that attacked the land of Oo, and Jake destroyed it. In the spaceship's wreckage, they found a map to an island that kept humans far away from them. They go on a long journey to that island in hopes of finding Finn's mother. They first ended up on Nature Island with a rough nature. Then they met a woman who told them that there were 4 islands, 3 of which were abandoned. The Founder's Island was the only inhabited island, and they were humans. Finn finally meets his mother, only to discover that she was actually inside of a robot managing the island through robots. Finn knew all about his parents' past, how he was born, Susan's story, and how his parents fell in love. After a long discussion with his mom, he decided to go back to the land of Oo, while Susan decided to stay on the island with her childhood friend. The Guardian let them pass following Finn's mom's orders. Once they get back, they found that something was wrong. All people turned into candy people. And here, we get to the 8-episode part called Elements. In this part, Princess Bubblegum was a huge gum and tried to turn them into candy. But before she could do that, Ice King saved them. And for the first time, because they were on the clouds, we see the land of Oo from above. It's divided into 4 elements. Ice King told them that Patience was the one to blame. She hypnotized the princess and taught them how to use their inherited powers, but things got out of hand, hence the land of Oo was the way it was. Because of this, they then wanted to fight Patience. They found Betty frozen and took her up to the clouds where she told them that she can figure things out through the Enchiridion book, but she had to get their diamonds first. However, we all know that the book was destroyed, so they had to use the one from the farm's dimension. After a long mission of collecting the diamonds and a few episodes later, they managed to get them, but the moment Betty got her hands on them, she of course tricked them and ran away, leaving them stranded by candy creatures. Luckily, Lumpy Space Princess comes to the rescue and tells Finn and Jake that she didn't become candy because she doesn't belong to any element. Instead, she was a balancing element that held the other elements together. Now, going back to Betty, she uses the diamonds to open a space-time portal in order to teleport into the past and help Simon, but she fails and teleports to Mars instead of the past, where Normal Man was the king. Ice King gave the Enchiridion book to Finn, and the diamonds came out and orbited around Lumpy Space Princess, where she merged with Earth and everything went back to normal. Even Jake turned blue just like the alien that bit his dad, and Patience froze herself for 10,000 years. Jake started learning things about his past, like when he had a dream about his brother, who told him that he had 2 parents, the blue one and the yellow one. his mom and dad, because she was pregnant at the same time. So after a philosophical discussion, he discovered where his power came from and went back to his normal form. Now for the Lich's hand that came from the farm dimension. The hand controlled Sweet Pea to kill Finn, but he was stronger than the Lich and killed him, and this was his end. Fern was behind Finn, wondering why he never gets to enjoy adventures like Finn, even when they were fighting for the stupid people all around. So, he decided to transform into a real Finn and asked him to hang out, locked inside of an ancient building to replace him. But Finn managed to escape, and after a fight, Fern died. A stranger took Fern's leftovers, this stranger was Gumbald, and he used those leftovers to create the Green Knight. He then sent the Green Knight to kill Finn, and the Knight almost beat him, but before he could do so, Gumbald stopped him, and it was then that we learned that they became humans when Lumpy Space Princess saved the land of Oo. At the same time, an alien kidnaps Jake and tries to take his power so that he would become young again. Here, we discovered why he bit Jake's dad, to pass his power to a victim and then sacrifice it to stay young. Jake still wins and threw the alien into a black hole, but he was stuck on an unknown planet. Jake's brother dreamed about him, and together they go to Normal Man and Betty to get Jake back through tests that they cleared, and they do get Jake back. Betty suddenly decided to go to Golb, who is apparently the god of their world. Going back down to the Earth, Gumbald built the city that he's always dreamed of, and also built an army of robots to attack the Candy Kingdom. But of course, Princess Bubblegum was ready to strike back. In the last episode, while preparing for war, Betty and Normal Man were doing some sorcery that has things to do with Golb, and before starting the fight, Jake threw the sleeping bomb, they all fall into a deep sleep and fight each other in their dreams. Jake plays with his brother just like they used to when they were kids, Finn gets rid of the parasite controlling Fern, Princess Bubblegum made up with Gumbald, and everyone admitted their mistakes and stopped the war. It was at that moment, Golb came down to Earth, turned the army into monsters, and while they were fighting, Ice King tried to stop Betty, but he ended up inside Golb's mouth, and Finn and Betty followed him. Simon comes back, the insides of Golb started shrinking, the monsters were destroying everything including the treehouse, and breaking BMO. BMO started singing, thinking he might sort things out, and the weird thing was that it actually did. Golb's insides stopped shrinking, and they went out. Betty then put on the crown and wished for Golb to disappear, but it was no use. So she wished for Simon to stay safe.
I wish for Golb to disappear.
I wish for Golb to disappear!
However it has to happen.
I wish for the power to keep Simon safe.
Golb changed his shape and then disappeared after eating Betty. Gunter then wore the crown and it made him look like the Ice King. Fern faded into the air because he was no longer controlled by the parasite and then was buried under the treehouse. Later, we see all the characters happy and humans went back to the land of Oo.
Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees.
All of this was narrated by BMO, 1,000 years later, narrating the story to Beth and Shermie, who was also the Land of Oo's king, and everyone else was gone. Shermie sure did look like Jake. Maybe it's his grandkid. A series called Distant Lands was later released where we see Finn as an old man, something we have never seen before. He had Jake tattooed on his chest, which probably means that Jake was dead. In the third episode of the series, we see Finn as an old man, and again, Jake was dead. Finn died later in that episode, and he was happy to be joining Jake after death because they agreed to meet in the afterlife and find a way to revive themselves. The secret code that they had agreed upon didn't work because there were many levels in the afterlife, and Jake was already in the 50th one. But after a long adventure, Finn finally got there, and that place seemed like heaven because it was peaceful and comfortable. In order to get out of death, they had to fight death, which was the Lich. They beat him, opened a portal, and Finn passed through it, only to be followed by Jake. The gate probably led them to life, or they might have been reincarnated as Beth and Shermie after 1,000 years. Who knows?
Jake? What are you doing? I just had my donkey epiphany.
I'm just coming back for fun. Because it's great being alive with you.
Good reason.
Let's go back to BMO though. He was telling the story from his own perspective because he sees things with a beautiful filter on, just as we saw on multiple episodes. BMO also forgot Finn's name.
Belonged to my best friend, Fred.
Fred! No, not Fred. His name was Phil.
Jake and everyone else has probably died, except for Finn, because neither the candy people nor the humans who came to the Land of Ooo were there. They never prospered or reproduced, although they did on the island.
Come along with me.
And that's it, guys. We have come to the end of one of the best cartoons ever made. We'll see you again in another video.